Thank you so much, Ms. Yuli. We have a question as well, but before moving towards that question, you talked about collaboration, and you are focusing on solidarity, collaboration, and cooperation at all levels. So, I mean, we have seen the lack of collaboration between the developed and underdeveloped countries when it comes to sharing the expertise in terms of education, research. So we unfortunately face this issue that we have the lack of, because if we say that France or Belgium, they are going to share their maybe educational strategies to Pakistan, to Bangladesh, they are not going to share. Or I mean, maybe our governments, our institutions are not willing to adopt them or maybe collaborate on those matters. Rather than we discussed about culture, we talk about our trade and investment. Again, that is very important. And we have to make it and enhance further, bilateral relations at all levels. But the point is, if we are trading with each other, if we are sending our products and we are we are doing import and export, then why not to, invest in education, and why not to, learn in education sector from these developed countries in terms of, I can say skill-based education. So I think that will be helpful in at least, minimizing, the gap that is in the developing countries, especially if we talk about Pakistan or Bangladesh.
The question is for me.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure it is the case. So you will find a lot of my reflections on my blog that I can post on the chat, and in particular one recent article that I published yesterday about this the ways to reach harmony. And it's a critical step before co-creation. So for a more collaboration world, we first have to find peace in ourselves. And we saw that children, education could be the mean for finding that peace again that died with the last wars, I mean, the recurrent wars, let's say. But there's also a lessons which I learned from all my research is how we can get to this harmony between peoples. And I spend a lot of time in the periphery to analyze the behaviors of people, understand better their needs. I had multiple conversations. I read tons of books on the condition to get to that harmony. And you will see the importance of being honest about who we are and our shortcomings. And I think Western countries could benefit a lot from the teachings of southern countries at the moment, but we just don't know. We just don't know what we don't know. I like to quote a friend that is very active in the health sector, Asim Malhotra, and it's very important that we start to open ourselves, to what to what can emerge. And by creating collaborative experience, all these conversations, that we don't have at the moment that could help our civilization move forward, we have to have them. We have to seek connections. We have to organize dialogues, conversation between peoples, because for now, we are just strangers to each other. You don't know us, and I don't know you so well either. And because we don't know each other, we don't know what we don't know, and that we need to learn to become a better humanity. So I think the more we will confront ourselves to each other's realities, the better. And starting from that very simple realization that we just don't know each other. So let's stop judging each other. Just that, be willing to listen and curious about what you can bring and what we can bring, because I think there's a lot of beliefs, there are a lot of bias, and And this is why I think we are not really anchored yet in a real reality. It seems like there's a lot of illusion on how we should be doing things, on how things should work. But apparently, and this is my wake-up call, let's say, almost 3 years ago, apparently, we are not doing the right things because we just go from crisis to crisis. So I think we should be a bit less arrogant everywhere and realize that we don't do well. We just don't do well. People suffer more and more. There are more and more injustices in the world, not less. We multiply crises. We continue to create billionaires everywhere because a crisis is always an opportunity to make millions. Let's be honest about this. So I think that we can do better in many, many ways, many ways. And just one teaching from my research, when you focus on injustices, you amplify them. So the only way to solve our injustices and solve our complex problems is through intergenerational collaboration and intercultural collaboration. Because you focus on poverty, you amplify poverty.
Yeah, sure, you are right. And we have a comment or maybe a question from Kamaluddin Kabir, and he's talking about the educational system in Africa need to include African struggles and culture in curriculum. So how do you see this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. From my research, I understood that to create belonging and a sense, especially of security, that more and more people lack in themselves. They are looking for security around because we are in turbulent times. You know, the boat is moving so fast. You have this busy, the fear of missing out, a feeling of insecurity within ourselves that we cannot control, really, our future. And to change that, the key is to come back to traditions, to come back to the teachings of our ancestors, to reinforce our cultural roots from where we come from, but also if we are migrant or if we are expats, we have to also sort of assimilate to the culture of the host country. So it's not only teaching of the struggles of the ancestors, making sure that we don't reinvent the wheel at each new generation, not learning from the very important lessons of our ancestors, but really this necessity to be rooted in the culture, whether of where we come from and where we live. And when we do that, it reinforces the sense of belonging to one community of shared interest. And thanks to that, step by step, we lose this feeling of insecurity that makes us very stupid things, like creating even more conflicts, being angry, being lonely, feeling lonely, when actually, how can you be lonely? Just go out in the street and you will see how many people we are. And not just people, but also animals and so on. So really, let's work on strengthening our culture. It's very important. It's exactly what we need. Yes.
Yeah, so Miss Yuli, we have another question from Ayman Jamil. She would like to ask.
It's directed to you, Mustafa, because you've mentioned, don't you think that exchange programs contribute to minimizing the gaps between developed countries and underdeveloped and developing countries?
Definitely. I mentioned, this necessity to create in all of us a collaborative culture, a partnership culture for our weaknesses. So to focus, to really, as an individual being, as a human being, we have to capitalize on our strengths that we have and make the most, of who I am, Julie, make the most of my essence, what I can bring to this world. And I invite you to look at what I can bring to this world. But for my limitations, for my weaknesses, just avoid them. Just realize that you can complement my own weaknesses, my own limitation with your strengths. And that is why I think everything that goes towards partnership is an excellent idea. We need to meet more. We need to understand better each other. We need to develop that empathy, that we are not perfect. And God, it's a good idea because reaching perfection is very bad for our health. So it's really this collaboration culture and partnership culture that will make us a better humankind. And as I say, individual strength is way too overrated. Let's start to wait for the hero, that it will happen. We will all save ourselves. Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yuli. We will take a last question. We have greetings from Gambia. So yeah, he is talking about the educational system in Africa, and especially he says that our educational system should be shifted from theoretical to more of practical, and also brain drain is another factor affecting African development. I think not only brain drain is affecting not only Africa, but even all the developing countries, I can say. So over to you, Ms. Yuli, if you can comment or this.
So it's a very important point, of course, that you mentioned. And so first, of course, the brain drain, but also you mentioned the practical skills. It's giving love to people when we stretch them, when we stretch them to become better human beings, because it means that we trust them that they can do better. And I think whatever we can do to stretch people out of their comfort zone is good, especially if we do it from a place of care. So yes, knowledge in, let's say, a knowledge world, because we see that knowledge is available everywhere. It's quite easy, to find knowledge when you look for it. When you don't know that the knowledge is there, that's the biggest problem. And that's why I agree that we have to bring soft skills, fundamental pro-social skills, I call them, in schools, to equip people to become change leaders. And I've done a whole research about that you can find on my blog as well, on the critical skills to become what I call co-leader. That is to develop our leadership within us, because we all have that leadership. We just have to wake it up. And for that, we need to be equipped with certain skills to make that leadership easier to cope with, because it's not always easy to follow our instincts, to speak truth to power, all this journey, of wanting to be good for the world. It's not, let's say, the culture today. The culture today is mostly apathy and personal interest. So when you come like me, when with all your dreams and ideas of what should be an exceptional civilization, I can tell you, my voice doesn't have a lot of space between the apathy and the personal interest. So it's a fight. It's a constant fight to make myself heard, but also that people see in me a good intention, because there's a lot of people thinking, but what does she want? She wants what? To rule the world? What? No, I just want to bring my contribution, that's it. And the other aspect about Brendan, I think it's lose-lose when migration is not orchestrated in a proper way. And I think that it's lose when a child wants to leave his country of origin, because this country of origin invested a lot in this child to create a better human through education. So it's a big loss when the child wants to go to Europe to find a job. And I think we need to put in place all the conditions necessary to reduce that brand, the escape, let's say, of amazing, talented people. And that's why, as part of my ideas, I would love to orchestrate a huge, massive employment campaign through a platform, so that at the global level, we both see the needs and orchestrate migration in a very powerful way, so that when people leave the country, they already know what they will find at the end of their travel. And if we can find a way to create job opportunities in the countries where people have been educated, I think it should be the first priority, to make sure that people, that children have a faith in their own country, because it's terrible. I'm an expat and I know how difficult it is to be far from our families, especially in times of crisis. So it's very important that, you know, we stop the bad marketing of a European dream that doesn't exist. You know, when you go to the big cities, you see the Nike shops, you see the malls, and you think that this is a dream that we live in Europe. But the dream is not in a Nike or a Pepsi store.